Hey everyone! Today we're working on a Bonfire and Embers soap using my Chiffon technique to create the look of a bonfire. As usual, my information that is up on the screen, I'm not going to be reading to you word for word, so hopefully you can catch all of that you need and write it down. The links will be in the description of the video. The description box usually falls right under the video and before the comments section, depending on the device you're using. Maybe someday I'll do a tutorial on how to find that because I know it's difficult for a lot of people. I wanted to create a fall bonfire feeling soap, and I wanted to do that using neon colors. My Mad Micas are my favorite. And so I kind of hem and hawed around about the way I wanted to do it, and I ended up using my Chiffon technique that I created actually a long time ago for Silk Rainbow soap that I did, which I still have not done a video for. Eventually I will, but probably in spring or early summer. But the one you may have seen, the video you may have seen with this technique is Chiffon Rainbow. And the idea of chiffon was coming from the world of resin art, where a lot of people were taking actual chiffon and putting it in their resin. Well, we can't quite do the same with soap, but I wanted to create the look of it. What I ended up doing was not really recreating that look, kind of creating my own look instead. So that's why it's called that, and that's at least what I call it. And I hadn't, I hope I'm not stealing somebody else's glory with saying it's my technique. I just haven't seen anybody else do it. So no thoughts intended there. I just, people started calling it Ms. Terry's, so I just went ahead and took it. Basically, you see that what I'm using. You're going to see me this fall and Christmas continue to try to figure out ways to create the designs I want without my favorite soap base, because it's just not easily accessible at this time, and it looks like it's going to be a while before we can get it. I typically use Crafter's Choice Premium Crystal Clear. That's just my favorite. That's what I like to use. I like clarity of it. Nothing compares, in my opinion. I know there are ultra clears out there, other brands, and they look pretty darn clear, and they're nice soaps, but I also need, with the types of designs I do, I need a soap that stays open a little bit longer and doesn't seize up right away. So a lower melting point soap, and this is what this soap offers. I've never found one to be even close. So you're going to see me playing with a variety of different bases. This one I'm using the Basic Clear from the same company, but I'm not, which it isn't as clear, just isn't. But beyond that, I'm not so much a fan of this feel of it on my skin. So I'm having that. I'm using 50% of the Crystal Clear, and because it is a black-based soap, I'm adding activated charcoal for the background. I'm using Wholesale Supplies Plus, Crafter's Choice, Premium, Aloe Vera, and Olive. Well, it is a very clear soap, so with the clarity, you're going to see the activated charcoal really well. It's only the white soaps that you really have a difficult time with that. But just as clear as the Crystal Clear, but with a hint of yellow. So the clarity's there, but it's colored, it's tinted, is the Aloe Vera and Olive, or Aloe and Olive. I'm not sure how they refer to it, but I love that soap, and I love the way it makes my skin feel. That's very subjective because your skin may not have the same reaction as mine. Everybody is different in what feels good to their skin and how their skin reacts to things. So That being said, I'm also going to be playing with some other soaps. I've got a bunch of, I want to make some detergent-free soaps and use some of the other bases that I have on hand, and maybe try a few others from that same company. Maybe I'll be playing around with a variety of other things. I don't know. Who knows what this season's going to hold? It's a little scary, but still going to move forward, and I'm still going to create tutorials because I feel like sometimes learning how to work around problems that you might have or come across, or difficulties like this in getting product, I think that's just as important as learning new techniques. So I'm encouraging you to also think outside of the box with what you use and how you use it. There shouldn't be really anything I need to tell you about this process I'm doing right now, other than that what I'm putting it on. I should have put that in the text. I didn't, but it is a silicone sheet or silicone mat. It's the one I purchased was from Amazon, and it's an extra large. It's intended for crafts. So it can be used for, your kids to roll out their Play-Doh on, or for painting on, and you don't want it to get all over your table or whatever. But I use it for soap. I initially bought it for just to have a nice background over my table, because I'm not in my typical soap room. I'm on a card table, which is why you see it shake occasionally, for filming purposes, until I'm able to mix things up and get my soap room filmable. It's just not right now. I just really don't have enough space to work, so it's and film at the same time. Once you start putting up lights and cameras and stuff like that, I'll be tripping over the legs, and I don't need to do that. So I work in a different room and set up a card table. Every time you see a new video, I have set up for that, although I do video in batches, so you'll see that sometimes too. But again, it's every weekend the table and the camera and the lights go up, and I take them down Sunday night. This particular technique I've been using for a very long time, way before I had this silicone mat. And so you can do other things. You don't have to use a silicone mat. You can get a similar effect from peeling out your pitchers, or if you use the plastic pitchers, it's very easy to pull. Most of the time, it's easy to pull the soap out and have a real thin layer of soap. Although it's not flat like this, it's still usable in certain types of soaps and looks you want. That's what I did for my Silk Rainbow soap. I didn't pour it out flat like this. Well, one of them I did, because I didn't have enough from the bucket. So, but other things you can do, you can pour it in a silicone pan or mold, like a slab mold, or even a loaf mold. It's easy to get a little too much soap in the loaf mold especially. So be cautious with how much you pour, and roll it around. Let it, if you just kind of pour it and try to fill it so that the bottom fills up, you're going to end up with too much soap. For some of the designs I do. It'll work for some, because I use that in other looks too, but you won't be able to get as thin of a not slice, sheet like this, and without kind of spreading it like I do. So there's another way. You could do it on the top of a large plastic, like Ziploc bag. If you have those oversized bags, you could do there. I have poured soap onto those, and it does peel off. It you might be able to get it to peel off of what do you call it? The plastic coated, like, freezer paper, or what's the other kind? I know there's a better name for that. It's not freezer paper, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But you could also get silicone kitchen sheets, the type that you bake on. You can use those. Just don't use them for food and soap. Please have separate ones available for use, because you don't want to get any molecule of food in your soap or soap in your food. Not great. What else have I? You could probably use saran wrap if you covered a solid surface in it, like cover a piece of cardboard or tape it down to a surface. You could probably get away with using saran wrap or even possibly your shrink wrap if you're not pouring it too hot. So just a variety of other ways you could get this look. I wouldn't necessarily use waxed paper because you're going to end up with wax in your soap. It's going to come off in there. So what you see me creating now on the screen, all the little chopping and stuff, there are things I would do different. I love the soap. Don't get on my case. Some people get upset when I put my soaps down. I love the soap. It just wasn't what I envisioned, which for me, I'm not upset about it. It's just room to grow. It's how can I figure out a way to make it better? That's what I'm always trying to do, is how can I make a soap better or a technique better, or that's how you get better, is you don't necessarily have to criticize or hate your soaps to improve upon them. You can have a perfectly good soap and still improve it sometimes. Most of the time, really. So this little thing I envisioned, part of it really, really worked and part of it didn't. I was trying to lay down here coals and ashes. That was the look I was going for at the bottom. And while I think the size of it, for the most part, like it turned out about as tall as I wanted it, like coming up through the soap was about just what I wanted. But and the gray, I did like the gray in there. That silver is Interstellar by Mad Micas. It's really pretty. It's a silvery silver. It's very nice and has a really nice little shine to it. But then I also wanted the look of the ashes, whitish ashes on top. So I added a little, you'll see in a minute, I add some titanium dioxide and pour over it. I should have done that in 3 different steps. I should have put a little titanium dioxide. See, here it is right now. I should have done it in between these. And poured a little bit more soap over the whole thing and encased it a little bit better. I also should have trimmed the sides. You'll see why in a minute. That becomes apparent when I try to put it in the mold. Obviously, I knew I was going to have to trim the ends because I wanted it to go further beyond the end of the loaf so that I could cut it and it would be a straight fit so that you see the cut of the look of the coals. Like when you're doing a landscape soap, it's kind of like that. You're not wanting to see it from the top. It looks cool from the top, but you want to see it from the front. And I wanted it to show on the very end slices, which it didn't quite. But see, it looks cool to me right there. It looks like coals. But what happens is I'm putting it in a soap that's an all black soap, other than the embeds. So what happened is the areas of those crystals that did not get covered in the silver or the white got covered in black. And they weren't coated enough. I should have coated them in some way. I could have just tossed them in a little bit more mica or glitter to seal the color in. But I didn't. I didn't anticipate this. So the brightness and brilliance of the little pieces of coal, the little crystals, some of those are just crystals I'd made for my crystal soaps. If you haven't seen me make those by now, you probably haven't watched very many of my videos. So I'll invite you to look at many of my videos. I create those. Probably, I wouldn't say half, but maybe a third of my videos. I'm using those. I use them for a lot of different things. So, and there will be more. There will be more coming up real soon as we get closer to Christmas. And here, all you see me doing, because I don't really explain it, is I'm just fitting them to the loaf mold. And the scraps, I promise you, will be used. I'm still deciding what I want to do with them, but obviously if I use them all together, I can do a different type of fire look of some kind. So, but the embers, the coals and embers, if I had coated them a little bit better with the white and light silver and silver, you would have seen the red and orange and yellow, the bright, fiery type of colors, show up a lot better. But when they got coated with black, some of the crystals are sort of see-through, transparent enough to where the black blocks the light from coming through and kind of browns them down a little bit so they don't really look like the coals and fiery lit glowing embers that I wanted in my head. So it doesn't look bad. It's still, if you know what the soap is, I've noticed because I've posted it in a few different ways. If you are told up front what the soap is supposed to be, you can see the embers, you can see the coals pretty easily. But if I just say, hey, what's this? It's questionable as far as that. Some people will see it as fire, as a bonfire, and some people will see that as like dirt, and flower roots. A lot of people saw flowers coming up through the dirt, and it to be honest, I totally saw that when everybody started saying it. But part of that I feel like was that the yellow, there's my other, I'm not going to say mistake because it's a beautiful soap, but the other thing I would change is I would add to that yellow, that beautiful, brilliant, bright neon yellow that you see there, I would add some mica, maybe Lala or bright yellow raincoat. I know there's a bazillion other good soap companies or mica companies that offer soap safe micas. I just tend to always go toward the Mad Micas colors. If I'd put a little mica in there, it might have also helped to block the light, or not really block the light, but block how dark that black shows through, because you're really just wanting it to be more opaque. I could have also added a little more titanium dioxide, but I didn't really want it to look pale yellow. I wanted to maintain the neon look of that. I don't know if you noticed when I, well, two things real quick. When I added the yellow, I added a touch, because it's tennis ball breaker, I added a touch of the, what do you call it? Floatation device, just a little bit to counteract the kind of natural green tone that pigment has. And it worked really well. I like, if you look at the color on the screen, it's exactly what I wanted. But then the black that surrounds it kind of shows through and it becomes a green. I honestly, when I cut it open, I immediately thought that I accidentally got some of my neon green shreds into the soap. That's how green it looked to me. So the other thing I wanted to quickly mention that I didn't put up on the screen is I added to this part. I didn't add it to the flames and the sheets of soap that you see there that become the flames. Is to that black, I did add the applewood fir needle. Of course, that's the main note of this soap. But I also added a little hint of campfire. There is already campfire notes in the applewood fir needle, but they're really subtle, and I wanted to bring them out a little bit more without overpowering. I didn't want a straight up campfire soap because that can be a little cloying for some people. I love the smell of a campfire, but for a soap that you're using on a daily basis or whatever, that might be too much for some. So I'm in love with the fragrance blend. I also added a little fir needle essential oil. I'm really in love with the fragrance blend for this. It smells amazing. So I was really happy with that. Now here's the part where you see I should have cut off the sides a little more. I think I just cut off a little bit just there. I was more concerned with the ends. I wanted it to fit down in properly. But I should have cut the sides too. And I do sort of remedy that, but I could have made it a little easier on myself. You'll see what I do in a minute. I've never, ever, at least in my memory, come back and had to cut something within the mold. But I figured that was the easiest way to do it. I was extremely gentle. I did not cut my silicone mold. I promise you, I didn't even scratch it. And I checked because I was worried about that. But so I just trimmed it up a little bit. I always I did pour a little soap first. I always do that if I'm putting an embed. If you put an embed flat into a soap without something underneath it, you are likely to get areas where the soap doesn't run underneath like you want it. or if you do want it. I don't know. You just have less control. That's what I'm saying. If you don't want to see, like if I had black and you didn't want to see that on the bottom, then I would pour clear on the very bottom and adhere it and then pour my black. But I wanted the whole thing to have a black feel, the feeling of, nighttime campfire with the embers kind of coming up off the ground, I guess. Anyway, so that's what you see me doing. I'm just cramming those in there. You can sort of semi-direct where they go. I probably could have done a better job with that. Really isn't what I exactly envisioned for the flames. But again, once you start pouring a soap like this, you can't just stop. If I pulled those back out of there and tried again, that'd just be one very hot, sticky, gross mess. And with all kinds of bubbles and holes. And I didn't want that. So if you do this kind of technique, one of the things you need to know is don't mess with them too much once they're in there. You can wiggle them around like you see what I'm doing here. And this is the other pointer I have. You have to pour in between each layer, in between each thing. And since I folded them, you have to pour in between the fold and in between each color as well. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of holes. And, a few little tiny bits little tiny holes with light peeking through might not be a horrible thing. You don't want a lot of that, or you find your soap falling apart. You might find other problems with it, and it won't look as nice. And there's another tip with this technique is you have to tap a lot. Why am I tapping? If you don't know, that's to get air bubbles up. Anytime you have a lot of embeds like this, you have a very big chance of air bubbles. And so you don't want to trap the air bubbles. And some of them are going to get trapped. It's just going to happen. But if you're tapping it, you're more likely to loosen some that are down there. And then you spray the top with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and it pops the bubbles. I also sprayed a little bit as I went. I don't know if it got on camera or not, but just a little bit. You just need a little tiny squirt. I use, by the way, a very fine alcohol mister for my spraying my soaps. I see some people using a really kind of like a heavy duty cleaning spray that to me, and this is just how I have to work. That's too much for me. Like, I like better control over it. If I need more, I can spray more, but I like a fine mist because it's not going to displace things and it's not going to add too much alcohol, but just it will add enough. You can have too much alcohol. A lot of people say you can't add too much in your soaps, like when you're doing layers, adhering layers, etc. You can add too much. Someday I'll try to show you an example of what happens when you add too much, but you can. And it can be frustrating, and it can not necessarily ruin your soap because it will eventually evaporate out, but it can create lines and layers and things that you don't want necessarily the look of in your soap. It'll destroy the look for the most part. So here we go, pulling it out. I hope within this that I'm being clear with some of these things I'm saying. Hopefully everything is clear in the video of what I'm doing, because I'm not giving like a line-by-line instruction either up on the screen or with my rambling. I'm just hoping to help you troubleshoot things. If you have any questions, of course, you know where to find me. Cutting this thing, honestly, the Uncle Andy's, as you may know if you know me, is my favorite. It's really like, for a loaf soap, it's the cutting tool to use for melt and pour soap. I have to use a double-handled cheese knife for some of my slab soaps because these Uncle Andy's just won't fit in right in to cut it the way I need to for those. But for loaf soaps, it's my go-to. And you see, and especially in the end pictures, you see how high those flames are coming up, right? And I had plenty of wiggle room to cut where it didn't smash any of them down. It didn't compromise the flames at all. So don't worry if you do kind of high top soaps or soaps with large embeds. I mean, there's a limit, obviously. The thing is only so tall. So you might want to measure that and see for yourself if you create taller soaps with lots of embeds sticking out, which you'll see soon because I'm doing my Micas bootleg cider coming up. So you'll see some cinnamon sticks and such sticking out of a soap soon. Although I don't think they stick out as much as these flames do. But anyway, here's the cuts. This is, I tried to not show it. I tried to edit a lot of it where I was really kind of perplexed and disappointed about the green. Anytime you see my hands kind of flap outward, I'm like, what? That's just what's going on here? Because I didn't, I wasn't expecting green where the yellow flame was. So I think that added to the look of people saying they looked like flowers. And I think it would be just as easy to make a soap that's flowers growing up out of the soil. I would probably use different color combo for that, though. And yeah, green would definitely be a part of it. But I hope that you can still see the look I was going for with the flames. I wanted the shape to be a little bit different with the flames, but I just... Like I said, once I started putting them in there, I was kind of not guessing, but flying by the seat of my pants with what was going on underneath the black soap. I'm used to doing a lot of these in clear so I can see a little bit better down in there. So, some of these flames are really swirling around. So let's just pretend that there's a nice big wind coming by. I put that yellow thing up because I wanted to show you the difference between the green that it looks like and the yellow that it actually was. You can see it at the top, though, where that yellow shows. That's the same slice. It's the same sheet of yellow soap, but in the black, it looks green. Something to keep in mind if you do yellow soap, yellow embeds in black. You've got to be, you at least be aware that it might be kind of green. So I'll play with that, I'm sure, in the future to see how I can, see if I can get something to actually look yellow like that. That's a thin sheet. That's part of the issue. It's a very thin piece of yellow, so it doesn't really hold up on its own. It's very thin. So I think I'm heading toward the end here, and I just want to say I do really love this soap. One of them, the one where the embers are kind of crooked at the very end, they kind of popped up. That's mine in my tub. I'm using it now, and I love this soap. It really feels nice. If you are typically dry, your skin gets dried out by activated charcoal, which can happen for some skin types. Use the aloe vera and olive oil soap, and it's really not that. It's not drying at all. It's actually quite moisturizing, which I can't really say, but it feels good on my skin. If you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching me make this soap. I hope you learned something. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions and comments. Let me know what else you would like to see me do with this design. I have about 50 in my head so far, so I'm not sure what's going to be next, but I will definitely be doing a variety with this design. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.